Now my great pleasure to welcome Reverend Paul Johnson, who will deliver our homily tonight.
Well, thank you so much, Beth, and thank all of you who participated in this wonderful service. You know, last Monday, as Carol and I left West Melbourne to return to our home down here in Stewart, we listened to the funeral service for Sandra Day O'Connor and found it very, very moving. Of course, there were the tributes by President Biden and Chief Justice Roberts, but I especially appreciated the words of her sons. They said they had followed to a T her instructions as to what was to be in the service. And the one thing the most moving to me was the hymn sung by the choir, Day by Day. And the first verse goes like this: Day by day, and with each passing moment, strength I find to meet my trials here. Trusting in my Father's wise bestowment, I've no cause for worry or for fear. He whose heart is kind beyond all measure gives unto each day what he deems best. Lovingly, it's part of pain and pleasure, mingling toil with peace and rest. This, I believe, was my mother's favorite hymn. In fact, she wrote her own hymn along similar lines and entitled it Just a Day at a Time. In fact, those words, just a day at a time, are on her gravestone. And often I'm reminded of her admonishing me not to borrow troubles from tomorrow, but to live today, day after day. So I was wondering, as we drove down from West Melbourne, what I was going to share with you in terms of a Christmas story, and it came to mind. There's another story in the back of my mind that I read many years ago that talks about the power and influence of a woman's mother's song upon her son. And I think this is a fascinating story about a Christmas Eve miracle, you might say. The story involves Ira B. Sankey, well known as a soloist and song leader for Dwight L. Moody, the best known Christian evangelist in the US during the latter part of the 19th century. And Sankey and Moody led crusades throughout the US during part of the latter part of the 19th century, and also in England and all the British Isles. And in looking, researching this, I found they had as many as 30,000 people in attendance at one of their rallies in Great Britain. And guess what it was in the US? Their biggest attendance. 62,000 people came out to their service in connection with the World's Fair in Chicago in 1893. So they were well known in this country. They were the Billy Graham of their era. But on Christmas Eve of 1875, Ira B. Sankey, the soloist and song leader, was recently returned from a crusade with Moody in England. And he was a little bit upset with Moody because he thought he would have plenty of time to get back to his home in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. But Moody said, well, let's add a few more meetings and gatherings when we get back from England, and you'll still be able to get home in time. But there he was, Christmas Eve, on a steamer on the Delaware River, hoping he'd get to Philadelphia in time to catch his train to get to Newcastle on Christmas Day. And so he was, it was a very warm night for Christmas Eve, and he stood looking at the water. And all of a sudden, a woman came up to him and said, "Are you Ira Sankey?" And he veered as if he was. She may have seen his picture in a newspaper or been to one of his rallies. But she said to him, "Mr. Sankey, would you sing for us?" He really wasn't in a mood to sing, but he said he would do so. And the word got out. And so a whole bunch of people gathered on the deck to hear him sing. And he was going to sing a couple of Christmas carols to them. But he didn't feel led to do that. He felt led to sing a different song, what he called the shepherd song. And it starts this way. It says, Savior, like a shepherd, lead us. Much we need thy tender care. In thy pleasant pastures, feed us. For our use, thy fold prepare. He sang the song, and there was a common silence over the whole crowd. And after he finished, he felt that he should leave it right there and not sing another song. And slowly the crowd melted away, except for one man who came up through the shadows. And he said, Mr. Sankey, were you ever in the Army? And he said, well, yes, I joined up in 1860. And the man went on to say, did you ever do guard duty on a moonlit night in Maryland? Yes, said Sankey. I believe it was Sharpsburg when I had that duty. Well, said the man, I was in the Army then too, but I was on the Confederate side, and I had you in my rifle sight that night, that moonlit night, and you were a dead man. But then you began to sing the song you sang tonight. Savior, like a shepherd, lead us. My mother often sang that song to me. She died much before her time. I just could not shoot you after hearing that song. And I've often wondered who it was that I didn't kill that night on account of his singing that Sunday school song. I didn't know the name Ira Sankey, but I would have recognized the voice in the song anywhere. Do you think we could take a little bit of time together? He asked. Very little has gone right with me, not before the war, during the war, or after the war. And so they found a quiet corner of that deck to sit and to chat on Christmas Eve. Now, isn't that an amazing story of Christmas coincidence? Some would say Christmas miracle. The power of a song, the power of a mother's influence. Very shortly, we'll be lighting our candles to represent how we wish to carry the virtues of tonight's service into the coming year. Love and peace and faith. But perhaps an additional part of that light that we'll share. And I'll be thinking of it as I share my light tonight, is the light of a loved one or a friend who has given light to your life, and you want to extend that on their behalf into the future as we sing together Silent Night.